Hey, welcome to the channel. My name's Vince. I'm the head honcho here. I do the production and the editing, and I sometimes star in these videos. And I'm a reader. I read lots of books of many genres. Many. Fiction, nonfiction, miscellaneous. It doesn't even count in those two broad genres. So I always see people, they're arguing like wah 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 wah, and like, oh, my genre is the best. My genre is the best. And they're arguing and they look like fools. And I say, grow up. Grow up. Don't just read one genre. Don't put yourself in a box. Expand your horizons. Expand. And read many. Become cultured. If you only read fiction, throw in some nonfiction. If you only read history or philosophy, mix it up with a novel. It could be classic, or it could be something a little more fun. Throw in some poetry, some plays, some graphic novels. Come on, guys, mix it up a little bit. So I'm gonna be doing a tier, that thing. And I'm gonna rank these in how I view each genre. I got 22 genres here, and I'm gonna rank them. And these are my opinions, mine, me. They're not the opinions of anybody else. There's no judgment that I'm casting upon these genres, if I like them or if I trash them, which is fine. I have opinions. I'll trash a couple, don't worry. But yeah, I'm gonna give my thought on each genre, and then I might talk about some like favorite authors or favorite works from said genre, or maybe like favorite eras of the publishing, or however things go, So I'm gonna go through all 22. I got 5 categories. We got absolutely required genres. These are the genres I think everybody should read, like, all the time. And next up, we got wicked brilliant. These are amazing genres that just don't quite reach the top of the game. Then we got solid stuff. These are genres that I enjoy reading, but I either don't currently, or I'm sometimes like off them. They're but usually pretty dependable genres. Next, we got occasional hits. So these are genres I don't really read and I don't have much interest in, but occasionally I'll find a good one that really smacks. So there's some merit to these genres, in my opinion, but overall I'm not too high on them. And the last one is vomit. VOMIT. And you might be able to guess what will go in vomit, but I'll leave that to suspense. So yeah, this goes S, A, B, C, and then L. So yeah, I'm gonna go through these. I got all these images that I put up here, and we're just gonna go through them right now, starting now. All right, I had an order that I wanted to talk about these in, and it's all screwed up. So I'm just gonna go in the order, because I have some notes to keep everything straight, because I'm not a genius. But the first image we're gonna talk about, we got contemporary, the contemporary genre. I consider this to be like the 1990s to the present day literary fiction. So not like a specific genre, just contemporary literary fiction. And I mostly avoid contemporary fiction because it's new, and I don't trust newer works as much as I trust older works, because older works have stood the test of time, and they've gone up against other similar books, and they've won out in terms of popularity and have lasted, and newer books haven't had that opportunity. So that's the reason why I mostly avoid the genre. But I do think there is merit in contemporary and understanding the modern perspective of the world, especially through lenses of people you might not be too familiar with, or you have different backgrounds or upbringings. So yeah, I think there's good things to be found in contemporary. And I'm going to place it in the occasional hits category. I haven't read much contemporary recently, but in 2024 I might have read a couple, but I did enjoy The Idiot by Elif Batuman. Next up, we got literary fiction. Just got a pile of books for this category. And literary fiction for me is just classic literature. It's like the great works of the world, classics. Doesn't have to be American classics, could be British, Spanish, French, Chinese, Japanese, Latin American, African. There's a ton of classics out there. And they're classics for a reason. They're great. I mean, I can't really say what themes they draw upon, because this isn't like a specific genre at all. It's so wide and it's so varied. And you can also see like how humanity developed in history through these classics, because these are older works. So you can see time periods that we don't understand now. And you can really get yourself into those with these great writers. So as a result, I'm going to put literary fiction in the absolutely required genres. And some of my favorite literary fiction authors: Albert Camus, Hermann Hesse, Oscar Wilde, James Joyce, and J.D. Salinger. But there's many more that I love and appreciate as well. So yeah, S tier classics. Go read them. Go pick up a book. Go touch some grass. Come on. All right, next up we got detective or mystery. I don't really read mystery. I only really read detective fiction occasionally. But mystery's great too. Agatha Christie is, I think, like the big mystery writer. Although she has detectives as well, so it all kind of like merge. But recently, this year, I read a couple books from Lawrence Block's Matthew Scudder series, and really enjoyed those. Scudder's like an alcoholic private detective in New York City, and he has some gritty stories, so I enjoyed that. It's like hard-boiled detective. I really like that, and some noir fiction as well. Just like grimy cities and like cigarettes and whiskey, and yeah. I'm also interested in Dashiell Hammett and Philip Marlowe, I think. So yeah, a decent genre, but a little basic in its scope, which is why I can't rate it that highly. So I'm gonna put detective in solid stuff. It's solid. Give it like a B ranking. It's fun to read, but I won't like seek it out unless I'm really in the mood. All right. Where's this next one? Next up, we got magical realism. Magical realism is like literary fiction and fantasy mixed. It's literary fiction with a little bit of spice in it. A little bit of magic, but it's not like a fantasy world. It's all based in reality, but there's some ding, 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 ding. So, yeah. Authors I've read who do magical realism: Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Carlos Fuentes, Paulo Coelho. Don't know if I said those all right, but this is a fun genre, and the writing is, maybe it's just these authors I've read, but the writing is fantastic. It's a beautiful prose, it's spiritual, and it's just chock full of metaphor. And the magical environment like aids in this like special feeling that you find when you read magical realism, and I love it. I've read at least 5 magical realism books this year, and they've all been spectacular. So, gonna throw this in the A tier, where I think it's a little bit more whimsical than literary fiction as a whole, classics. So that's why it's going a little below S. But A tier, highly recommend the magical realists, especially the Latin Americans. It's just a great genre. All right, next up we got historical fiction. I got a couple people in like old-timey clothes who are standing next to each other. I think it's from Outlander, which is historical fiction. And I don't read much historical fiction. Like I don't read that much at all. I've read a few though. I've read a couple over the years. And I think this genre really depends on the time period that you're reading. It's like, oh, if I enjoy the time period that I'm reading about, the fictionalized time period, then I might enjoy the book. But if I'm not interested in the time period, I'm just gonna say no, I'm not even gonna read the book. So for me, it's hard to get an accurate judge of this. It just depends on like how well the author can immerse you in the world that they've created while still maintaining some historical accuracy of like the broad surroundings. So yeah, that's why I'm gonna put this in occasional hits, kind of like contemporary. Read a couple good ones. Read historical fiction from ancient Rome, the Ottoman Empire, Edwardian England, and like mid 20th century Afghanistan, I think, to name most of them. And it's interesting to see like these wildly different places and time periods, but nothing spectacular. I haven't really gotten into the genre, so it's getting a C from me, historical fiction. All right, next up we got Pennywise the Clown from It. You know what this is? This is horror. Got the horror genre. And I've mostly read horror from Stephen King, but I think I've read a couple others. And my take on the horror genre is that I find it hard to get like scared by books. I can get like deeply unsettled, mostly by like kind of dystopian and future science fiction-y topics, but actual like horror doesn't really get me going that much. So yeah, it's like I find there's a lot of horror in real life stories that aren't supposed to be horror based. But I have read some good King novels that are horror. And I've also read Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, which I think is horror, and that sucked. I just wanted to say that doesn't have any basis on my rating. But horror's going in the C. I'll put it a little above historical fiction, just because I like Stephen King. So I'll bump it up one. All right, next genre we got up is thriller. I got a picture of some like action scene from a movie or something like that. But these are novels of like action or suspense. And I've read a few thrillers, not the most experienced in the genre. But these are supposed to be like fun, engaging, fast-paced, like a quick palate cleanser, at least for me. Palate cleanser from like some heavy books where you're just having fun, having a good time, reading something, having some popcorn. You're like, yeah, this is good. It's like fast and light. And yeah, it's a good genre for me for like when I'm in a reading slump, but it's never really gone any higher than that. So yeah, some authors that I like: Michael Crichton. When he's not doing sci-fi, he's doing thriller, techno thriller. He's really good. Read some Tom Clancy, some Jack Carr, and some Robert Harris as well. So it's solid. It's solid. I'll put that below detective, but in the solid stuff tier. I'm always super entertained by thrillers. Usually give them a 4-star rating on Goodreads just because I'm entertained. And I like being entertained, even if it's not the greatest novel. So thriller gets a B rating. All right. Next up, we got fantasy. Got a picture of Lord of the Rings here. Fantasy used to be my favorite genre. I would devour fantasy. It would be all I read. I probably read like 40 something fantasy books in 2022, maybe 50 something. Just eating them up, like Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan, bunch of other authors. But I've kind of moved past fantasy. I do still love the genre, but to me, fantasy is like escapism. I'm like retreating back into this comfortable, old-timey, like medieval world, and it's just good versus evil. It's just a problem of morality. Are the good guys gonna win or the bad guys gonna win? Yeah, I know fantasy can be more complex than that, but that's kind of what I've just morphed it into over the years. This isn't a knock on the fantasy genre. Like, I still think it's great. But yeah, it's not as... It just doesn't do it for me anymore like it once did. And for that reason, fantasy is going in the B category, solid. Put it at the top of B because still dear to my heart. But yeah, it just doesn't do it for me like it once did. I'm going to try to read Lord of the Rings soon, though. I don't think I've ever read that. So, yeah. All right, next up we got science fiction. The other big speculative fiction genre other than fantasy. And science fiction, I like to say, is the consequences of innovation, looking to the future. And for that reason, I'm huge into fantasy right now. Just looking to the future, how humanity will develop, how technology will develop. Since the Industrial Revolution, humanity has been developing just so rapidly in all forms of culture and society and technology. And it explores so many novel concepts. So I just think this is a fascinating genre. And it really depends on the author in pushing his themes, but not being too technical. Don't really like the hard sci-fi. Like it still being a story about humanity, responding to situations, and trying to grow and learn or survive. Just think that's great. You can have fast-paced fantasy like Red Rising, or more philosophical like Arthur C. Clarke, or just kind of crazy crap like Philip K. Dick. And I think there's good things in all these like sub-genres. I love cyberpunk too. So yeah, it's great. Some of my favorites: Clarke, Bradbury, Asimov, Dick, Pierce Brown, love Red Rising. So yeah, amazing genre. I'm gonna put it in the wicked brilliant category, right above magical realism, because fantasy is science fiction is amazing. It's not this like life-changing thing that I would put into S tier, I don't think, but it's so close. It's so close. I've read so much sci-fi this summer and really loving it. So A tier for fantasy, top of the A tier. All right. Next up, we got the big one. We got a romance. Romance. Do I have anything to say about romance? No. I don't have anything to say about romance. I've not read a romance novel. And I hate how romance is taking over fantasy, the fantasy genre. Just watch a rom-com. Like, you don't need a smut book. You don't need a romance book. It's fine if you read them. Actually, I have nothing against romance readers. If you're an only romance reader, though, you expand your palette a little, please. But yeah, I don't actually have anything against romance, but the thought of reading a romance book makes me want to vomit. So, sorry. All right. Just gonna skip past that L tier. All right, next up we got Dystopian. I got like a dirty street picture. I said this in a previous video, but I separate dystopian works from sci-fi, even though most dystopian works are science fiction at its base. But for me, dystopian it's on Earth. It's a dystopian society. That's why Red Rising for me is sci-fi and not dystopian, because it's in space. It's in space. But yeah, these are... It's a much more like serious branch of science fiction. It's based on like class conflict and oppression and revolution a lot of the time, and the social commentary is very valuable. It's so allegorical. You can apply it to like so many situations in history, because humans suck and are always doing crazy crap to each other, which is why I think the dystopian genre is so powerful. That's why there's so many massive dystopian classics that are taught in school or just widely read compared to science fiction. I mean, not, you know what I'm saying. But, like Fahrenheit 451, 1984, Brave New World, The Giver, Clockwork Orange. They allow us to like imagine where societies where things have gone wrong, or to call back on societies where things have gone wrong, and just imagine and extrapolate where they could go or where they will go, where humanity will go if we don't like keep things in check. We don't stop ourselves from getting too powerful, too disturbed. So yeah, dystopian novels are going in the S tier for me. I love them, just like sci-fi, just a little more important than sci-fi, in my opinion. So it's getting an S tier, required. You probably have read some in high school, so they are required for you. But I'm requiring them as well for you. I'm just realizing now I put the history picture for Thriller. That was like a old American scene. Thriller is this movie scene. So I'm switching those right now. But we're talking about history now. We're going into nonfiction works, by the way. We just did all the fiction works for the most part. So history. I love history. I love learning about the past. It's seeing how our ancestors lived for the most part. and it explains how we arrived at the present state of the day. It can be insightful on how we proceed for the future as well. So you look back on the past, explains the present, and shows a way to the future. Because humans don't change that often. Things around us change, but the way we respond and react stays the same a lot of the time. And that's why I think history is important. That's why probably a lot of people do as well. But good history depends on the subject matter, and it depends on the author. You got to make the work at least a little engaging to keep the reader interested while still going through the main facts and crafting a narrative. Yes, history has narrative, even though it's nonfiction. You got to tell a story. You can't just put out the facts, because that won't be a great book. Maybe it's a textbook, but even textbooks have narratives. So yeah, some genres, or not genres, but like time periods that I like reading about are definitely ancient Greece, ancient Rome, like pirates in the age of exploration, and also medieval Europe. Really like that as well. So history's going in the wicked brilliant category. Love reading about history. So that's an A for history. Next up, got biography. Got a picture of Ben Franklin here. Biography, a work about the life of a human being, usually a famous or impactful human being. And these are important for understanding how great people become great, or how famous people become famous, how important people become important. I'm not gonna say everybody with a biography is good or important. It's not true. But understanding well-known people, how they got there. So yeah, but a lot of these biographies I've seen are just way too long. It's cool you found all these details, but it doesn't really need to be that long. I don't know. But I haven't actually read many of these long biographies, so I'm really hesitant to cast judgment on them. So for that reason, I'm going to put biography in the B tier. Solid stuff. Maybe it'll rise as I read more biographies. We'll see. Alright. Next up, we got literary criticism. I think this is Samuel Johnson reading a book. It's the famous picture. Or reading a newspaper. Can't really see with my sunglasses on. But yeah, criticism is an important genre. It's important to understand more about books and authors and writing and how we think about those things. That said, I've read a few books of criticism, and I think that a lot of the authors in the genre can be pompous. They can be too good for, or seem like they're too good for what they're writing or reviewing. And I don't like when there's a condescending tone to a work. I don't know if anybody does, but I've seen that a decent amount in criticism. And it definitely rubs me the wrong way. So while being important, it's not I'd say, see, occasional hits, but the genre as a whole, yeah. There is it. All right. Next up, we got philosophy. Got this ancient world photo right here. And philosophy asks the questions, why are we here? What is our meaning? How do we live a good life? What do we know? How do we know it? And these are some of the basic questions of life. What's going on? You wake up, you're conscious, you're oh, here we go again. What do we do? And obviously important questions, important to try and figure out the answers. Now, we've been doing philosophy for thousands of years as humans, and there's still not many concrete answers, so that shows that the genre is not an easy one, but it remains one of the most important subjects that you can do in your life. And for this reason, philosophy is S tier. And I've mainly read Stoicism for philosophy. Stoicism, bro. Not really, but I enjoy reading about it. I think it's a decent philosophy. But in the future, I'm really aiming to read Plato by the end of the year. I would like to. But despite not reading like huge philosophy books all the time, I am like surrounded by knowledge of it. Just like looking up philosophy every once in a while. I'm perturbed by ethics, but also very interested in ethics, so I want to read about ethics too, and logic, and a bunch of other subjects there. So philosophy is S because of its importance to the world. Next up, we got this guy at a typewriter. That means books on writing. Now, this isn't a huge genre, but I've read 3 or 4 at this point. I'm not really a writer, but I like reading about writing because I think I'm okay at writing, and I could try to do it in the future, maybe. So I've been reading some books. And there's 3 ways to improve your writing. The first being to just write. Just write. All you gotta do is write. The next is to read books that you want to emulate the writing of. It's like, oh, I like the way Hemingway writes. I'm going to read these books, and then I'm going to write like him. And then the third way is to read books on writing. So that's what I've been doing a little as well. And these can help like refine your skills or create your skills, or just like recommend good habits for you to take. So yeah, decent genre. I find in the genre of books on writing, though, it's easy to pick apart authors who are writing about good writing because you really want to like get them. Like, oh, this guy thinks he's good enough to write a book on writing, and then you start like tearing it apart, like poking holes in everything. Which like I don't do that much outside of books on writing. So I don't know if that's a me thing or the genre, but that kind of hits it down a little bit in my book, just because I've torn some of these books apart. So it is a valuable skill to learn to write, though. So I'm going to put it in B. Near the end of B, I might throw it above biography, because thrillers are more fun. Yeah, books on writing. All right. Next up, we got memoirs. Also essays. I don't really read essays, but I'm throwing essays into this category. And I'm not a huge fan of the genre. Like, if you're writing a memoir, I don't care that much. Like, be more famous and get a biography written of you. I don't need to hear it from you. But people do often have things to say. It's just the genre's kind of bloated with all these celebrities and such. So, yeah, I don't think it's the most important genre of nonfiction. I think it's near the bottom. Depends on who's writing, but in the genre at large, it's pretty low in my book. That said, I'm listening to Matthew Perry's audiobook, Chandler from Friends, and it's really crazy. First memoir I've read in a while, maybe the first celebrity memoir, and I'm just burning through it on audio. And I don't even listen to audiobooks, really. So, occasional hit. Put it at the bottom of C tier. But I'm really enjoying Matthew Perry's audiobook. Rest in peace, by the way. He died last year. I think everybody knows that. But yeah. All right. Next nonfiction is psychology / self-help. Right here I got someone on like a therapist's couch. Now, I combine these two. I don't think there's a huge difference. See my other video on psychology books for my perspective on the self-help genre. So I'm not going to talk about that. But I will say that I enjoy improving myself, especially with communication and understanding how the human mind works and how my mind works and how the minds of other people work. And I think that's important for success in life. Not just like monetary or social success, but just happiness and general success and living relationships well. So I think this is quite a productive genre. You gotta filter through the BS and the get rich quick and the make friends quick and whatever way, yada yada yada. Get power, get money, get fame, get women, men, whatever. You gotta filter through that. There's a dark side to the genre, but I really like the self-improvement aspect, and I think it can be really helpful to people, and I don't think it should be scorned as much as it is. So this is going in the wicked brilliant category. I've read a lot of great psychology, self-help books in my days, and yeah, it's good to improve yourself. It's good to have that drive and to put it into practice, not just theorize. And the last nonfiction genre I have to talk about is religion/theology. And this is similar to my thoughts on philosophy, except that it's religious based. And I'm Catholic, so I look at this through the lens of Catholicism. I've only really read Catholic or Christian books. Not that I'm not open to reading other religions, but I'm more focused on my own faith. So yeah, these books are spiritual in nature, but still kind of like the same questions of philosophy, though it deals with, as for Christian books, like God and faith and church history. So yeah, I love reading about religion and theology, although I'm no expert. I kind of only read basic books. But yeah, this is going in the A category, wicked brilliant. Now you may be wondering, like, if you put philosophy in S, why'd you put religion in A? And I put religion in A because religion, spirituality is more than just books. It's more than books. There's a whole spiritual aspect and a community aspect. It's for Catholics growing in faith with your parish, doing service. So the books are not the main focus. And for that reason, it's just a little lower than philosophy. Which the works of philosophy are like hand in hand with the practical. So that's why I think it's more important as a genre. But yeah, religion in the A, it's wicked brilliant. Go read some religious books if you're religious. If you're an atheist, that's fine. I don't know. I don't have anything to say. All right, and we got 3 more categories. These are miscellaneous, and I'm gonna hit them really quick. We got graphic novels. Graphic novels. This is a page from V for Vendetta, which is my favorite graphic novel. But these are like fun changes of pace. Like sometimes you just need a picture book. It's fun. You look at pictures and there's less words. And the pictures are usually cool. So, yeah. But being graphic novels, it's a very broad category. You can have any kind of graphic novel that you want. It just needs pictures and little comic words. So, I have seen many, many, many bad graphic novels. I go to the library and I just pick random ones out and I read them because they're quick. And I've read a lot of bad ones. I've read a few great ones, especially Alan Moore. He's got some good stuff. But yeah, the lack of general importance of the genre and the wide range, a lot of them being not so great. Gonna put graphic novel in the C tier, occasional hits, which is very true. There's some great hits, but as a whole, I rate it a lot lesser. And I've read like 20 plus graphic novels. Not that that's a lot. I haven't read any manga. But yeah, it's okay. Penultimate genre, we got plays. Now, plays are an incomplete work. Plays are meant to be seen on the stage. You're not usually supposed to read a play and only read the play. You're meant to see it. That's why there's stage direction and yada yada yada. But yeah, reading plays is still a good time though. I've enjoyed most of the plays I've read. I've given a lot of them like 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. These are short because they gotta be capped for visual runtime, and it's pretty much all just like dialogue and stage direction, so it's a little limited. But there's a ton of classic plays out there that are uber successful, and they're successful for a reason because they're good works, and the literary aspect translates to the stage. So in reverse, the writing is great as well. So you can kind of imagine what's going on. My 2 favorites are A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. I also enjoy the aristocratic drawing room play subgenre as a whole. And I also love the Oedipus Cycle by Sophocles. So for that reason, I'm going to throw plays in the B tier, right in the middle. Here. Love plays, and I would love to see more on the stage as well, instead of reading a lot of them. So yeah. And we come to the final genre. Last but not least, romance is least. Maybe best genre here. Maybe. We have poetry. Got a picture of a Shel Silverstein book. And yeah, what can I say about poetry? The things you look for in poetry: meaning, rhythm, sound, the combination of those to create like a passionate work, something with sadness or yearnings or desires, or just any kind of emotion really. And reading good poetry aloud to yourself, in my opinion, is one of the most like therapeutic practices you can do. Like, it's calming, it's inspiring, and these poems, they're usually short enough that you can memorize them, keep them in your pocket for whenever you really need a good poem to just like say to yourself. And I think poetry is one of the most important mediums of art in general, if not the most important, for the reasons I've stated. That it's just great to have in your arsenal for inspiration, passion, and emotion. So poetry for me gets the S tier, absolutely required. I have not been good about this, but I used to say that you should read poetry every day because that's what Ray Bradbury said, and I agreed with him. But I'll put it in third, behind philosophy and literary fiction. So that's my list. That's 22 book genres rated and ranked left to right. They're my opinions, they're my judgments. I'm not judging you for your positions on these genres. I think it's good to read any genre. You should read. Maybe you should read some of these genres that you're not too familiar with. Maybe I should read a romance novel. I don't think so, but who knows? Who knows? Anyways, that's it for this video. Gosh, it went really long. I'll put links in the bottom so you can just click around on them. I don't care if you watch any of it. I also don't mind if you don't like or subscribe. It's cool if you do, but I'm gonna do this regardless, so yeah. See you guys in the next video. Drop a comment if you want to expose me for horrible takes. I'll fight you in the comments. It's cool. See ya.